Welcome to Whose Review Matters Anyway, the podcast where the show notes are made up and the reviews don't matter. That's right, they don't matter, just like perfect attendance. Really, think about it. Like, why does anyone really care if you were there 100% of the days you were supposed to be there? Like, if you think back in school, you didn't get the perfect attendance award if you were sick, if say a close family member or a close friend passed away. Like, that's kind of messed up for not being awarded perfect attendance just because you had some serious stuff going on. Just saying. Now, the only reason I'm actually bringing that up is because if you haven't already figured out or haven't noticed yet with, the fact that I was able to speak this much without being interrupted, there is no Mike, there is no Ham. It is just me, Sal, here for this episode. Unfortunately, Mike's family, it seems like everyone's getting COVID in his family, and so he's been really busy, not only just getting better for himself, but also taking care of everybody else. So, we want to make sure that he had the time to kind of get that straightened out. We didn't want to push out an episode just as an obligation or anything like that. Of course, family comes first, health also comes first, and so we wanted to make sure Mike had the time and the opportunity to get that squared away. And Ham's just not here. I actually never bothered to text him. You'll probably hear this and be like, what? He should have said something. But this was just an impromptu thing. We actually weren't intending on having an episode out this week, but I figured there's a couple of reasons why I'm actually doing this episode and why I'm going to do the review, I guess, I'm going to do today. We've been a podcast where we mainly talk about movies and TV shows, especially the most current stuff, the stuff that gets newly released, just to kind of give our opinions. And, it's the tagline of, Whose Review Matters Anyway. We have such varying viewpoints that, we wanted to kind of make sure you guys understood that no matter what we said, it all comes down to your personal preference. And me, Mike, Ham, we have very unique viewpoints compared to each other. And, it's funny how all of a sudden Ham will love certain movies or TV shows when the first time we talk about it, we hated them. He despises them or something like that. You heard that from when you listened to our top 5 movies and top 5 best and worst movies, and he completely changed his mind on things. Or how I recently changed my mind about Encanto. So it's we wanted to make sure that we bring as many perspectives about different media topics as much as possible. And one of the things we had early set on was that we wanted to also review video games. Unfortunately, we never really stuck to that. We reviewed Ori. I think that was our first one. And then we reviewed The Last of Us. And I think after that, we didn't really talk about any other game. We talked about Halo Infinite just recently, and that's because it's a huge deal to me. And Ham's been consistently playing it, so we were able to talk about that and get our viewpoints in on that. But it's not fair that we always neglect the video games, because that is kind of a big part of our lives, all three of us. And so what I figured, and actually Mike and Ham didn't know about this. I was actually going to bring it up this week on this week's episode. So I guess if they're hearing this episode, this is the first time they're hearing this. But what I wanted to do was get value from my Games Pass. Personally, this is me personally. I wanted to get value out of my Games Pass, right? If I'm going to continue to pay $15.99 a month for my Games Pass on my Xbox Series X, then I want to be sure that I play enough games that is going to make up that $180 value by the end of the year. So I put a goal to myself this year that I will try out one new game on Xbox Games Pass each month. So I figured every month on this podcast, I would give a video game review. That way we don't neglect that, right? Now we have something consistent. So I've already beaten the first game for this month, and I'm already starting on the next game for next month. Got to get a head start on that because that's actually a little bit of a longer game. So I think that's something that we can do, that we can accomplish for this podcast, and that's something that that we would like to continue to bring to you listeners, so that way we're not always just talking about movies or TV shows. We want to branch out into other types of media, especially video games, as I already mentioned. So that's what this review is. It's actually a review on a video game that I have played on Xbox Games Pass, and I'm going to give my thoughts about it, kind of give my rating, stick to the whole red, yellow, green card system. And yeah, we'll go from there. And then, we'll still do our posts on Instagram and Twitter. And, you can let us know what your thoughts are, especially if you play this game. Because some of the games on Games Pass have already been out for a while. If there's anything new, it'd probably be Xbox exclusive games. Like if Forza had come out, this month, and, that would be something brand new. Although I do eventually plan on getting back to Forza, or at least I want to try that out. So that is on the agenda, or that's on the to-do list for this year. But, you hopefully you get what I'm trying to say. So, here we go. Our first video game review of 2022. I got a chance to play a game that I wanted to for such a long time, especially because of the aesthetic of it, or at least the concept behind it. It's the concept behind it, not the aesthetic so much. It's a game called Maneater. And if you don't know what this game is, the game plays as like a sort of documentary on Shark Week, where they follow the story follows an old grumpy fisherman that was whose hand was eaten off by a shark, but then gets his revenge on the shark, kills that shark, and gives birth. That shark actually had a pup in her, and the fisherman managed to grab this pup out and then scars the shark as a way of like claiming dominance, I guess, throws it back into the water, and that's pretty much it. Thinks that probably that he'll never see that shark again, or that if he does, he'll know what shark it is because of the mark. And then that's where you step in as the player. You actually play as the shark. So even though the outline of the game is that Shark Week documentary of this fisherman you're just following his shark, fishing hunts and whatnot. You play as the shark who's actually trying to seek revenge. So what you end up doing throughout the entire game is going through these different, what they call grottos, these sections of the map, and you look for clues, or you look for things that will lead you back to this fisherman to exact your revenge. Now, that's just the very core concept of it. Is this game worth playing? This is a very hard one for me to talk about because I'm very biased. Like, this is going to be a completely biased review on this game because I love sharks. Sharks are my favorite animal. And that's why when I saw this concept, I was like, oh, I have to play this game. Like, this game was built for me. And I love, obviously, marine creatures and just being in the ocean and stuff like that. So this whole game was just littered with that. I mean, you're going through the sea, you're going through the Gulf, all these different creeks and underwater caves, and you're exploring things. And the overall experience was really cool for me. Now, it is an open world game. So you do have collectibles. You have landmarks that are like basically like these posts that you hit, and then it talks about this particular scene. Maybe it's like a shipwreck, or it's like a remnants of like an old carnival or something. So you have like these different landmarks that you get to find. Then you also have these crates, which actually contain things that you use to upgrade your shark, which I'll talk about in just a few moments. And then you have, let me try to think what else you got. So you have landmarks, you have the crates, and then you have like these little quests, like these targets, these mini bosses, so to speak, where you have to go and kind of wipe out to clear the area of that particular predator. And there's all other missions, side missions that you have to kind of do where you have to eat so many people. So yeah, you get to crawl up on the beach and try to eat people, or just eat them while they're swimming in the ocean or whatnot. There's missions where you have to tackle boats. So there's kind of a lot to do here. And it's a smaller kind of open world game. Like, it's nothing vast. Like, it's nothing huge. It's a little, you got a little bit of substance here. You got, I think, 7 areas to go through. But you can go through them fairly quickly. In fact, just to also kind of preface this, the entire thing took me 13 and a half hours to complete. And that also includes the DLC. I think before the DLC, I've managed to finish the game in just less than 10 hours. So it's also a very short game. But do you get the quality for it? I I don't think I can recommend this to everybody, only because it depends on how you're going to purchase this. So just to remind you, I did download this through Games Pass. So I didn't have to pay anything for this game beyond what I already paid for Games Pass. So I just downloaded it, played it. Is it worth that much just to download and play it? I think absolutely. Like, this is a fun, like, little side game that if you just want to kill time, you don't want to get anything too deep, too serious, you just want to have like a little bit of fun before you have to, like, you're waiting for, I don't know, your girlfriend or boyfriend to get ready for dinner, or you have like a movie you got to catch an hour, or so you just have some extra time, downtime. This is a good game for that. And so you can download on Games Pass and just play it. Is this game worth paying for what its original value is? So I believe on the digital stores, if I'm not mistaken, someone's going to have to fact check me on this, I think it's still registered for $30 or $40 on Xbox store. But on the PlayStation store, I believe you can get the entire package with the DLC for $30. I don't think this is worth that price. As much as I don't want to say that, I almost didn't actually want to pay the DLC, but because I was so far into the game and I did like most of what I played, I did cough up $13.49, because originally the DLC I think was $15 plus discounted with the Games Pass, $13.49. I don't even think really for me was worth the $13.49. Would I have felt better if it was maybe $10? Absolutely. I think $10 probably for the whole package, great value. It's worth that it's worth that game. Maybe you're pushing it to $15 for the whole package, probably, because even though the gameplay overall is fun, it's short, but the story and everything else, there's not a whole lot of depth to it. It's fairly shallow, and it's a lot of repetition, just like a lot of open world games are. Actually, there's a lot of repetition, right? You have to go find this collectible in this particular spot and do this particular sequence. Like, it has that same repetition to it, but it's just it's not like meaty enough. It's not like wanting me to reel back in. I wasn't playing over and over again, throughout these hours just for the story. It was just mainly for the gameplay, because I was swimming around as a mutated shark. I'll talk about that in a second. So I was swimming around as a mutated shark, just wrecking shit. So, I got, interested in that and just having fun doing that. But still, I just don't feel like I got my money's worth, kind of, if I wasn't such a biased fan. Like, I don't know, it's such a hard sell for the price that you can get this game. Again, if you got Games Pass for Xbox Series X, go download it, play it, take your time with it. Totally fun. But be careful if you are going to pay for it. At the very most, I think if we're pushing our wallets, $20. No more than $20, but that also better come with the DLC, because that way you get the entire 13 hours of that game. The mutated shark part. Let me go to that part of the section. So you get to upgrade your shark, and what's pretty cool is that you actually have 3 types that you can mutate to. So along the way, as you're beating bosses, or you're finding grottos, or you're defeating these captain ships or whatever, these larger ships, you actually unlock body parts and you unlock organs. Now, the body parts is separated into sections. You have the head, the fin, the tails, the body, and the teeth. And like I said, there's 3 sets. So there's the shadow set, the bioelectric set, and then there's the bone set. Now, that's the initial 3. There's actually a 4th one. It's an irradiated set that comes with the DLC. I'll get to that in a second. But the other 3 have their kind of own specific agenda. You can kind of figure it out, though, from their title. Bone, you're literally covered in bone armor, and you're really good for ramming things and being sturdy and have a lot of health and damage resistance. Shadow, you're very fast. You get to slow down other opponents when you evade them. And then bioelectric, you're kind of more like a weapon, where you have bioelectric teeth and you shock opponents and they kind of lose damage over time. And I will say, though, out of the 3, I don't ever use the bioelectric one. I think that is literally just there just for the quote-unquote cool factor, and you don't really get any benefit out of it. In fact, when I tried it the one time that I did, I nearly died from a lot of boss fights. Whereas opposed where I was playing like Shadow or the Bone one, I I didn't have any issues. I was having, I was almost invincible at that point. The Bone one, I think, was my favorite. I think that one is definitely the best one, especially when you go and have to rank up your infamy level where you battle, like where you take down lots of ships and on a lot of captains. That one, the Bone Armor, if you upgrade that one fully, you'll have no issue whatsoever. Now, when you get to the DLC part and you get the Irradiated Armor, that's pretty cool. I think it's kind of like my second favorite. Honestly, I probably prefer the Bone Armor, but that one, I think the whole emphasis behind that, or the whole the glory behind that, is that once you upgrade to get your body, then you actually shoot out like this sort of laser beam Godzilla style, which is cool and is neat, and you actually can wreck everything very easily. But then that is also kind of its flaw, that you get to wreck things very easily and it's no longer a challenge anymore, and you don't find, well, at least for me, I didn't find fun in just blowing through everything. It's like I don't know what else to do, and now I'm just like plowing through my $13 that I spent, in my time that probably should have been extended is now shortened. So it's a cool look, and it was a cool idea, and it does achieve that oh, this is a very cool thing. But I think for function, for the value of what you're supposed to invest into, is definitely the Bone one. Because you also have to be careful of your resources and what you invest into. You have like 5 different resources to collect, and definitely collecting those little boxes, those treasure chests, caches that you find that's the other collectible on there that I mentioned before. Definitely help with that. And then everything you eat along the way, turtles, sharks, small fish, seals, whatever, they also give you different resources as well. So you essentially want to try to eat everything as you go through it. But you just have to kind of be mindful what you invest in, so that way you don't like completely get locked out of not necessarily locked out, but like you don't get like an uneven, weird upgrade model where like you're completely maxed out on your head armor, but your fins are like still tier 1, and it's just, I don't know, it's just very clunky and weird, especially if you have OCD like me. And then you have other organs that actually do specific things, whether it increases your speed, enhances your radar, your sonar, so to speak, gives you extra regeneration of health, all these different things. And then you also use the same resources I talked about before to upgrade those. There's specific ones that are useful. I think you will find obviously the most typical ones useful, like the maximum health increase or the regeneration, the max speed ones, damage resistance, all that stuff. I think can only have up to 5, and then you get your 6th one. Yeah, I think you get your 6th one when you do the DLC. Now, the bosses are pretty cool. You get to fight marlins, alligators, orcas, great white sharks, hammerheads, and then eventually, like when you get through the DLC, you actually get to fight mutated versions of these things too. And then the boss fight, actually, I'm going to save that discussion for last because that one's kind of weird, but the bosses are very cool. They're kind of fun to play too, depending on who you battle with. The sperm whales are the most aggressive, and then the orcas are fun though because they actually try to knock you out of the ocean and have you like fly up in the air. So, that was kind of like an interesting battle there. If I could spoil the DLC ending, so be warned, spoilers, everybody. Just letting you know, I'm spoiling the ending of the DLC. It all comes down to, for the DLC, because that's a different story, it all comes down to a fight with like a mutated monster called a Leviathan. Now, with that name, you would probably think, oh man, this has got to be like a gruesome, vicious, like Hulk of a sea creature. It's kind of underwhelming when you first see it. I don't think it's what you expected, but it's also not like that underwhelming where it's like, oh, you're just this thing. But compared to like what you've battled before, it's just kind of like, I expected more. Maybe some like huge ass tentacles and like this sort of weird like kaiju looking body or something. Nope, it's nothing like that. And so it kind of felt like, I don't know, like they didn't know what to top as far as bosses go, and they just went with the simplest design. And the fact that you had like at this point you should have like maximum for that irradiated set armor, where you can also, like I said, you can blast that laser like Godzilla. And once you have that maxed out, the boss fight is just kind of like meh. You're just basically just doing this whole laser thing over and over again. And there's an interesting point though where it actually the Leviathan calls like all the previous bosses you had defeated, and so you're fighting off a great white, a sperm whale, an orca, and all these things while you're trying to fight off the Leviathan. But again, if you have the laser, it doesn't really matter because again you just wipe out the boss fight fairly quickly. And so it was a bit anticlimactic and it was just kind of disappointing. But going back to the overall core gameplay, if I were to give it a card, a biased card is going to be green, but I think what it honestly should receive is just a yellow card. It's not a terrible game. By all means, it is not a bad game. There is just a lot of content they could have added, and there's some things that they could have cut out to kind of make a more consistent game. Because it's not always fun. There are some boring parts and some downtimes to it, but some of the fun parts make up for it almost. So it's not, like I said, it's not a bad game. It's definitely worth trying if you can get it for no more than $20. Otherwise, don't worry about missing out on this game. It's cool. I like the idea. Do I want a sequel out of this? To be honest with you, no. I think I'm fine with what I played and the amount that I spent. And, I don't think it needs a sequel because I think I felt like the DLC was a bit of a stretch with the story. Although it is kind of funny. Like the whole storyline from beginning to end, from the core game to the DLC is supposed to be consistently funny. It's like a parody off a Shark Week documentary. But, I don't know. It's just, it was okay. It was nothing like super interesting. And in fact, I almost forgot most of the story just because I don't think it really impacted what the point of the story was. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's Maneater for you. Yellow card. It's an okay game. It's fun, especially. But if you are into that kind of stuff, the shark stuff, like you love that idea, that core concept, you're biased towards that animal. It's your favorite animal. Definitely worth checking out. That will make the game much more fun for you. Otherwise, it's okay to pass on it. Nothing special. All right, that's pretty much it for that review. So it's like a short and sweet episode. Plus, our reviews aren't supposed to go longer than 20 minutes. At least we don't try to go longer than 20 minutes. But sometimes we do go off on tangents and good discussions, which I kind of wish the other guys were here to kind of chime in on this. But that's fine. It's okay. I'm sure they'll bring up some stuff on next week's episode if they actually end up listening to this one. And yeah, so if you want to chime in with your thoughts, if you tried out Maneater, let me know what you think, if you agree with any of my point of views on this, or if you think there was something that I missed on the story, because like I said, I don't think the story was that great, but if you think there was something that was like an epiphany that I should have had, please let me know, because I'd be much more happy than to kind of give that another second thought on it and just kind of maybe change my mind. But yeah, if you want to reach out to us, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at RMA Cast, whose review matters anyway cast. Our Instagram might not have changed just yet because of a stupid technicality, but you should still be able to look us up through that tagline. Again, WRMA Cast on either platform. Or if you want to write us an email, we still have the drunkcop.ateacher@gmail.com. I don't know what we're going to do about our email just yet, but for now, just use that. Again, it's drunkcop.ateacher@gmail.com. It'll be in the show notes down below. Otherwise, that's all I got for you. Usually this is my time where I just say, hey guys, any closing words? And then usually the other two say something ridiculously stupid, and then we have our laughs, and then we kind of go off into the outro audio. But I don't have that, so I don't know what the guys would say. I'm sure Mike would be like, love you guys, stay safe, have fun. And then Han would probably say, drink up, or cheers, or shots all around, or something about alcohol, because that's unfortunately what he does every single day of his life. And on that note, that's where I'll end it. Goodbye, everybody.